Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're obviously not professionals at this, but we're getting it going. So, welcome to the Tacoma Debates, hosted here at historic Lincoln High School. I'm Kristen Wynn. I'm representing the Tacoma Business Council. We're an organization committed to making Tacoma safer and more prosperous by bringing businesses together with civic leaders for real solutions. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Reed Fetters. Reed is the founder of Tacoma Rising. They are a dynamic group that are connecting and celebrating Tacoma's business community through events, podcasts, and partnerships.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. We're really proud to co-host this with Tacoma Business Council. This partnership is exactly what Tacoma needs. Business leaders and community builders collaborating to create space for public dialogue. Kristen, thank you especially for your work on tonight's questions. All of these questions, Kristen, put all of the work into this. We definitely gave some feedback, but all the work was Kristen. So thank you for doing that.
Of course, thank you, Reed, and thank you to the Tacoma Rising team. They have put in countless hours. That includes Becca Lambert, our timer tonight, Quentin Davis on AV, and Adrian Wright as well on AV. We're here tonight because local elections matter. For those who don't know, Tacoma operates under a weak mayor system. What that means is the mayor is one of 9 votes on city council. They're equal votes. The city council hires a city manager to run the city. The 2 races you're going to hear from tonight both have the ability to have a significant impact on our town. So tonight you're going to hear from 4 candidates from 2 races. So we're going to have first our candidates for the City Council Position 6, which is at large. And we'd love to welcome them to the stage now. That's Jessica Johnston and Latasha Palmer. And later in the evening, we're going to hear from our mayoral candidates as well, Anders Ibsen and John Hines.
Moderating tonight's conversation is someone that knows the civic landscape well, Scott Hines. Can we give Scott Hines, let's just give him applause now, please. This guy has put up with us for the last several months preparing for this, and he's been very patient. No relation. Wait, is there? Hold on. There is none. Okay, we're safe, guys. No, they are not related. Scott is a respected civic leader and strategic advisor with a long record of public service in Tacoma. He served as president of the Tacoma Public Schools Board of Directors, where he focused on advancing education equity, student achievement, and community partnerships. Prior to that, he was a member of the Tacoma Human Rights Commission, advocating for fairness, inclusion, and access for all residents. In his professional capacity, Scott has served as a strategic advisor to elected officials and community leaders. His work reflects a consistent commitment to collaboration, accountability, and the belief that strong communities are built through informed and inclusive dialogue. So, without further ado, please join us in welcoming Scott Hines to kick off the evening's first debate.
Yes, thank you. And to clarify, no relation between John Hines and Scott Hines. It's just super confusing, but our names are spelled differently. And thank you, Reed and Kristen. I'm honored that the Tacoma Business Council and Tacoma Rising asked me to moderate tonight's debate. And as Reed mentioned, tonight's questions are a reflection of the Tacoma Business Council board's input and their members, and the Tacoma Rising board and their members. And before we get into it, because I know you're ready to go, this is probably your 50th debate, yeah. We'll go over the ground rules. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. For each question, you will have 90 seconds to respond. We will rotate who goes first in order to keep the process fair. In some instances, I may allow a rebuttal from the first speaker. And we're going to hold you to the time because we want to hear from you, but we also have 2 other candidates waiting in the green room to come out, and we want our audience to stay as long as possible. So we're going to, Becca and I are going to hold you to being on time. Also, as moderator, I may provide immediate follow-up if I believe it's warranted. We really want to hear details. So and we've tried to give you enough time to provide details. So if it feels like maybe you stayed at a high level, but we'd like you to get into the nitty-gritty a little bit, I may push on you to see if we can get deeper into what you're trying to convey in answering the question. Of course, we ask for civility throughout this debate. You may directly address your opponent, and you are welcome to point out where you disagree with their positions, whether based on what is said here or has been said in other forums. However, those disagreements must be expressed respectfully and with professionalism. At the conclusion of the debate, each of you will have the opportunity for a closing statement. We hope to allow at least 2 minutes for that closing, but the exact amount of time will depend on how much time remains. During your closing, you may address anything raised in the debate that you feel is important, including comments made by your opponent. Our goal tonight is to give voters a clear understanding of your positions and to allow you to draw distinctions in a way that is informative, constructive, and civil. We will begin with the position 6 candidates. So again, let's welcome Latasha Palmer and Jessica Johnson. We will begin with opening statements. And Latasha, you'll go first, and then Jessica will follow.
Awesome. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay. Thank you all for being here. We always relish in opportunities to connect with you all and hear your thoughts. And so hopefully you get some of your questions answered tonight. But if not, then I'm always available afterwards to get in contact with. Just a little bit about me. I'm a mother, an entrepreneur. I'm an advocate. That's how folks know me. I love my city. I've been here my whole life, raised in Tacoma. And throughout that time, I've been just about in every zip code in Tacoma, whether as a renter, or going to school, or now as a homeowner. I love my city, and that's why I know that it doesn't need more fear-based talking points. It doesn't need more ideas that romanticize the past, and we want to hear what you guys are actually wanting. So you won't hear those things from me. What you will hear tonight is forward-thinking, practical solutions based on research and evidence and my experience, fighting for policy change. You'll hear an understanding that sustainability equals stability and good business, and that ideas based on an understanding that a strong community and strong economy are interdependent. They go together. Also, I'm ready to govern on day one. And why am I ready to govern on day one? So I don't know how many folks here followed the charter review process last year. I was on that committee appointed there, and we had some folks were applied and others were appointed. I was appointed, and we basically went through the charter with a fine-tooth comb. And the charter, for those who are unfamiliar, is basically like the constitution of our city. It covers the structures and functions of how the city works, basically everything. We spent over 100 hours going through that process and looking at how we could improve that charter for you all. And when I chose to spend my time, instead of just doing like the basic crossing your T's and dotting your I's, I spent my time looking at what was working in other cities and what could work here. And so I brought forth more forward-thinking ideas that maybe some of the folks on the committee weren't used to. And so I was able to win folks over to those ideas by going through the research, right? I brought the things that I learned in university, at Columbia University, about urban studies and about sustainability and about political science. I brought those to the table. I listened. I made sure that I paid attention to their concerns and addressed those. And I also made sure that I listened to the community. And so I was happy to say that I won people over towards the end of that process. So ready to govern on day one.
Ready, thank you. Jessica.
Do we get to clap?
Please. All right, Jessica, 3 minutes to introduce yourself to the audience.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to Tacoma Business Council, to Tacoma Rising, to all of you for being here. You're taking your time out of your day and your lives to make sure that we are running Tacoma right, making sure that you're putting the right leaders in place to lead you in the right direction. And that is very, very important. So I'm glad that you're here and listening to all of us as we get to debate tonight. I really appreciate my opponent, and that's become very, very clear. We have been together now for over 6 months in the same rooms, almost talking about the same things. And as you'll hear tonight from myself as well as the mayoral candidates, we all have 3 basic topics. So I'm not going to bore you with that right now. I'm sure we'll get into it in the debate. And if you want to hear any more about my topics, I have 20 listed at electjessica.com. You're welcome. So, I was raised from entrepreneurs. I was raised from immigrants. I was raised from people that came here to make things better than how they found it. We have bankers. We have entrepreneurs. We have educators, all in my family, as well as healthcare workers, which thank you so much to my cousin Nathan for being here tonight. Who has definitely inspired me to be the human I am. Our grandfather is actually the assessor for Pierce County. He devoted his time to make it better. Before there was DEI, he was doing it. Before we asked people and mandated it to be this way, he was making choices as a white man in Tacoma in the 70s to do the right thing, because those are the family values I come from. We all know the right way to be. We all know that without this, we do not get along. I currently run a city within a city, Courthouse Square in downtown Tacoma and KSP building on Hilltop. All together, it's about 100,000 square feet of Tacoma. I deal with grease traps, community relations, lease agreements, help hiring small workers and vendors to come and help our building while making sure that we keep it as much historic as possible. And that has been a great feat. I get passionate. I'm also a very passionate person. So what I'd like to say is, Tacoma really, like my Can I get seconds back for that? So anyway, I'm here to say that Tacoma is all one team, and I hope it becomes purple. As with football, there's offense and defense, but together we cannot find the win if we can't make it happen. So let's not put names on each other. Let's not put each other in boxes. Let's figure out how to work together, get back to that film room, figure out what we did right, what we did wrong, and bring that winning championship back to Tacoma, Washington. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Latasha. Are we good on the mic before we get going?
Test.
Oh, I got double thumbs up. All right. Great. Let's dive right into it. So, given that we are in the beautiful, historic Lincoln High School on the east side, we thought that we would start tonight's debate with a question submitted by a longtime resident in Tacoma's east side, Dina J., who has lived on the east side her entire life. And Dina asks, encampments, garbage, and graffiti occur disproportionately on the east side. What steps will you take to revitalize our area? The east side was trending upward until 2019. And Jessica, you'll start.
Thank you so much for that question. I'm really happy to say that I have great friends that live on the east side. I participate in a lot of community functions on the east side. And all of our districts matter the same. Hearing that the east side is facing those challenges, the one thing I would say is we have to go to small government. I know people don't like hearing that, but it is the truth. I am the Vice President Treasurer of the Downtown Tacoma Partnership, where we do remove graffiti, where we do help with safety, where we do help with the clean team. And I propose, as well as the city has, to bring that to every district in Tacoma. The cost of it is nothing compared to the cost of doing that privately.
So for all the things that are happening here in Lincoln, I say get with the people who care. Get with the people who know, get them around the table, give them the power to achieve the things they know they need to do. The city council is very busy. As much as we want to hear you, time is of an essence. So if we can have helpers in each district tell us, we are the leader, we are the ones who are seeing these things on the ground, and this is what we need to repair it. I fully believe that we need that kind of support system to make all of our districts better. So what I would do for Lincoln, I would say, please start a BIA, which I've been saying for years now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Latasha, 90 seconds for the same question.
So I grew up on the east side. That's where my journey in Tacoma started anyway. I grew up on off of Fairbanks Hill. I don't know if you all know the steepest hill in Tacoma. I went to Rogers Elementary over there, and so I care deeply about that area as I do with the rest of Tacoma. I think we see the trash and the graffiti as a symptom of what is underneath, right? What is causing those things to happen? A lot of times it's folks don't have the buy-in into their neighborhood and feel like it's theirs, and so there's a need to create some kind of ownership there. And so they go tag. What would happen if we gave them opportunities to become part and feel like they have ownership in that neighborhood? They had a say of the artwork that went on this wall, or a say in the business that was over here. They're not going to want to destroy or mess up those places. And so I'm a huge advocate of what I call neighborhood hubs. So instead of BIA, I advocate for CDCs, lots of letters, community development corporations. BIAs only talk to the property owners, don't talk to the small businesses, don't talk to the residents in the area. CDCs bring everybody into the conversation so that everybody has a say in what's happening and everybody can take ownership.
All right, thank you.
Is this where we get to say extra things?
Not yet. We're going to dive into arguably one of the most important issues facing Tacoma right now, and that's budget and priorities. Tacoma has a general fund budget of $635 million, which is funded by 5 sources: taxes on business, property taxes, sales tax, miscellaneous taxes, and utility tax. Recent reporting by the News Tribune shows that the city is expected to face a $15 million deficit in the 27-28 budget, something that those elected in November will need to address. With that in mind, please take 90 seconds to share your top 2 priorities for how Tacoma should spend its budget. And Latasha, will begin with you.
Top 2 priorities for spending the budget. So first off, I think we need to take a look at the budget again. The city council just did a review of the budget, and of course we had that $24 million deficit. It didn't just pop out of nowhere. What got us to that point? I think we should be asking those questions. Why are we planning to already have another $15 million deficit still? And when I look at, and be the nerd that I am, I like to go line by line and look at the actual data. When I'm looking at the budget, I see things in there that I don't understand as somebody who's involved in the city and has a pretty good idea of what's going on. What is this money going to? Is this the most effective way for us to use those funds? So I think there's more work to be done, and there's just so much happening at the city level that I think our current council, everybody has lives. I am a nerd and I like to dig into those things, and I have enough time to dedicate to researching those things. And so I think that's something that I'm going to bring to the council that doesn't exist there now. I think we also look for more progressive taxation that doesn't affect as much of the working class and the people that are already burdened so much. I don't think you can look at just one topic or 2 topics. They're all intertwined for me.
Okay, and that's fair enough. But if you were to have to choose, given the myriad of things, finite resources, what are your top 2 priorities for the city budget?
So when I look at the bottom line of like what's causing a lot of the issues in our city, housing is the biggest one. Affordable housing, permanently affordable housing. It ties into all the other things that we were talking about, people not taking ownership in their community. It ties into crime rates. It ties into our homelessness epidemic. I don't know where we're at yet, what level, but I'd call it an epidemic. So it would be housing, and to me, that ties into everything else.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, same question.
Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, I have 20 different topics that are on my website, theelectjessica.com. I love this question because the things that we can do, they are not simple, and I completely agree with that, and that does not go over my head. But to say how we can start responding and how we can start getting better and how we can start making more money and filling the deficit that we have is to bring our city workers back. We are $3.1 million in deficit due to taxes that we thought we would get by now. We haven't gotten them. And why? Because there's not enough people in our city to pay that. We make money from taxes, and that is the hard, cold truth. You can't get away from it. We need our businesses here. We need people spending money here. We need to make sure that Tacoma is a place that everyone wants to be. If our city workers were back at the municipal building, and me as a person who runs a huge building in downtown and a lot of different businesses within that, I will tell you that without the city workers, we have nothing. We would have had maybe half less of this deficit, this portion of life that we're in, with this $3 million deficit in our lives right now if we had realized that we could have gotten that back from taxes. We could have gotten that just by people spending money within our city.
All right, thank you. And Jessica, I'm going to follow up. Would you elaborate? You talk about bringing the workers back. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to tell us, how does bringing the workers back equate to increasing tax revenue?
Yes, thank you so much. So there's over 1,000 people that work at the municipal building that work for you. If you live in Tacoma or you own a business in Tacoma, you are paying for their salaries. So to make sure that those folks aren't spending their money in coffee shops and other ways, spending their sales tax dollars that should be our revenue for our city, we need to follow up with that. We need to make sure that we bring them back so that that money is coming here. I have nothing against Puyallup and Lakewood, but if people are spending their money there, they're not spending it here, and that does not help the city of Tacoma.
Okay, thank you.
May I say why I disagree?
I'll give you 15 seconds. Sure.
Okay. I just think it's kind of un-American to dictate where people are spending their money. We want to encourage folks to spend the money and spend their time the way that they want to. I don't think that we should dictate, hey, you have to be here and spend your money here. We should do it, make them want to.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, this next question, you will start on the topic of revenue. Tacoma voters recently rejected a levy lid lift for the fire department and the city's streets initiative. Given the anticipated budget deficit, would you advocate that we go back to the voters for the fire department or the streets? If yes, what do you propose? And if no, why?
Thank you. I always advocate that the actual citizens and the people who live here get to have the vote. However, we all don't know what that means. And the way that the city currently writes our policies and measures and initiatives that they're trying to get you to vote on and pass on are very, very misleading. So I hope that we can go back and truly look at where this money needs to go and how we need to raise it. I don't feel that it is good to raise taxes. I'm not here to do that. But I am here to say where our money's coming from and figure out to make sure that that funnel is open and clear. I believe in our fire department. I am proudly endorsed by our fire department and our police department, which means the world to me. Without them, we are nothing. So when it comes to how I would separate money would definitely be first responders, for sure. That is the first folks that should receive our tax dollars. They keep us safe. They are our heroes. They risk their lives every day for us. So cutting their money isn't the first place I would go. I would definitely open up the books to figure out where else that money could come from, but it certainly is not with our safety and first responders. Thank you.
And Jessica, I'm going to give you 15 seconds, just a simple yes or no on the fire lid levy lift.
A simple yes or no. That's a really hard question. But I would have to say right now, I would need to look at it further, and the way it's currently written, it does not have my vote.
Okay, and bring back the streets initiative.
Same.
Okay, thank you. Latasha, same question, 90 seconds. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes,
It's been a
please,
minute,
yes.
sure. Tacoma voters recently rejected a levy lid lift for the fire department and the city's streets initiative. So the question is, given the anticipated budget deficit, would you advocate that we go back to the voters for the fire department or the streets? If yes, what do you propose? And if no, why?
Yeah, so when I'm out knocking doors and I hear about why folks turned those two things down, voted those down, it's not because people don't understand that they need to pay for services in the city. A lot of the folks that I talked to, one of them was, a grandma who had trouble getting her kiddo to school. When we're talking about like safe streets, she's like, I want this corner to be paid attention to. We've called 311 I don't know how many times, and we haven't received an answer. Others that see, like in my personal neighborhood up in Hilltop, new bike lanes and stuff, which I advocate for, but they just kind of popped out of nowhere and nobody knew where they came from or that they were coming. And so the introduction was interesting. And so I think people don't feel like they're being brought along with how we're spending our money. They don't know that the things that they're voting for that money to go towards is going to those things. And so I think if we brought it back and people understood exactly what that money was going towards, that it could pass. Because people want to feel safe. They value our firefighters, and they value street safety. We just need to make sure that they know that that's where the money's going to, and we need to make sure that we need extra money. Let me say that again. We need to go into the budget and see where that money's going right now. If the money that we're getting can be already getting can be more effective, and if we need to put those two things back on the ballot, I would support that.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you so much. So I just want to tell people this is more of a FYI. With 311, do not call them. There's an app. Get on the app, it tracks it. You can take a photo of what's going on in your neighborhood. You can see who else has reported it, and you can see when the action has actually been completed by our city. So please go on the 311 app. Also, along with the bike lanes, I agree. I also live on Hilltop, and when these bike lanes came out, I thought, what the heck is going on? We have so much money that we need to spend. Can we please show us why and how we're spending it? Thank you.
All righty, thank you. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is cost of living and housing. Latasha, you're going to go first. The News Tribune recently reported that Tacoma rents are rising faster than the state average, 2.3% here compared to 1.1% statewide. At the same time, construction of new housing has slowed. In 2022, before voters approved the Renters' Bill of Rights, Measure 1, there were more than 30 applications for multifamily tax exemptions to build apartments. In 2025, that number has dropped to 10. Tacoma's current apartment rate vacancy is 7.3%. With that in mind, what role, if any, do you think Measure 1 is playing in the cost of rents and slowing construction of apartments? And looking ahead to 2026, when the council will have the authority to revise the measure, would you support changing it, eliminating it, or keeping it as is? 90 seconds.
Yeah, so when the Tenants' Bill of Rights, is what I call it, was brought forward to voters, I think it was brought forward after a long period of folks asking for the tenants to have a say in in the places that they live, because there's so many issues that they're dealing with, whether it's like derelict buildings and their services not getting, things not getting fixed when they need to get fixed, or rents going up at a crazy rate. They weren't seeing answers to those things. And so the people brought forth what they thought was going to be the best answer for that. So it got us somewhere. And I think the people who brought it forward would also agree that, it's not perfect, and that's progress, right? It's not meant to be perfect, but we have the ability to go back and look at what it's been doing, what it hasn't been doing, the effect that it's had, whether good or bad, and adjust for that. So I think it would take an actual study to figure out the real effect, and whether there's actual causation and not correlation when it comes to the amount of buildings and the amount of, rents going up. And so I think we need to look further into that. But absolutely, there needs to be some changes to that, and I think everyone that I've talked to on both sides is in agreement with that.
Okay, and I'm going to give you 30 more seconds to talk about what would those changes look like in your opinion.
I think that there has to be that study. I think I need to understand, again, how it's affected renters, how it's affected landlords, how it's affected attracting folks to come in and build the affordable housing. I would need those answers before I would say exactly how I would change that.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, it's your turn. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm fine,
Okay.
thank you. Unless I don't answer it, please let me know. But as far as our measures, again, it goes back to a lot of initiatives that are being passed in Tacoma. It's not being looked at everyone. We are already a state that is tenant heavy as far as what they can, sorry, I was going to say what they can get away with, wrong words. But what our tenants are very protected. Let me put it that way. I am a tenant. I'm very protected, and I know that. But I also run 2 buildings with people that aren't so protected. I know a lot of people in Tacoma that have sold their second homes because they don't want to be renters anymore, which affects our affordable housing greatly. If we have people that don't feel safe enough to rent out the house where they raised their children in and live in a condo where they're now living out their best lives, their golden years, that's not okay. We have to make sure we're protecting everyone. I want tenants to be protected as well as I want owners to be protected. So no, with this measure the way it currently is, I don't support it. As many of them, I want to go back to the drawing board and rewrite it. Make a couple edits. I'm not saying that they aren't good things. I'm not saying that we don't need these programs. We do. But we need to make sure they work for everyone, and currently they do not. I would like to make sure that we are there for our developers, and I know that sounds like an ugly word, but here's the deal. My time is up.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we're going to shift gears towards the next topic, which is social housing. Jessica, you'll go first. Seattle recently began imposing a tax on businesses to fund social housing. That tax is imposed on businesses at a rate of 5% on compensation that exceeds $1 million to fund social housing, and is projected to raise $50 million. Do you support the idea of bringing social housing to Tacoma? And if so, explain why and how Tacoma would pay for that. And if you do not, explain why. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I would say, again, and I hate to be a record here, but in this current state, no, I do not support that. Because adding more taxes to our businesses is not what we need. People don't feel safe renting their homes. They don't feel safe here in Tacoma buying property, opening a business. Like, how are we going to ask them to add more taxes to their life in order to get to that accomplishment? So I do believe that we need to go back. We need to go back to the drawing board. And in the beginning of my whole conversation here with you all, thank you again for being here, I discussed how my mom and grandfather made seats at the table. They didn't just do that in their private circles, they did that within the community. How are you feeling? What do you need? What are we missing, and how can we improve it? And that is what I feel like will really make a difference. All of these things that are going on in Tacoma are nonsense. We need to stop it all, to be quite honest. But we need to stop it and come up with a plan. You can't just get in the way and stop progress with something. You have to get in the way and say, I have an idea. Can we discuss it? And that's who I am, and that's the leadership I will bring to you.
Ready, thank you. Latasha, yeah, same question on, do you support the idea of bringing social housing to Tacoma? And if so, explain why and how Tacoma would pay for that. And if you do not, explain why. 90 seconds.
Yeah, I do support social housing in Tacoma. So I think the market does great things for some things. I think it hasn't quite answered the need for housing, and we see that. We see the effects of that with our homelessness issues, or with people not being able to afford where they live, people being displaced, not being able to stay in their homes that they've raised their kids in because they can't afford to anymore. And so social housing, I think, covers that. It covers on at least the tenant side, where instead of whatever the rent's being raised and tied to the market, it's the rent is to take care of the building, and there's not like extra. It's not for profit. Profit's not the main motivator, and so that takes care of folks that can't afford the cost of living right now. I think we pay for it again by looking at different opportunities. If you're what was it in Seattle? A million?
It was 5% on revenue that exceeds $1 million.
I think you can take care of your workers if you're making money like that, and they will help. They will take care of you. It goes both ways. If you have people that can't afford to live where they live, you have high turnover. You have people who can't eat their healthy food because they can't afford it. Then you have sick employees. So I think it benefits everyone bringing in something like social housing.
Right, and Latasha, I'm going to give you 15 seconds to specify exactly how to pay for it, and then.
Exactly.
Well, when contextually, when we talk about in Seattle on
Right.
the 5% on top of $1 million, is that what you're supporting in
We don't
Tacoma,
have that
or do you
same-
have a different thought on how we might fund it?
Right. We don't have that same tax base in Tacoma. We know that. We know that there needs to be some work done into finding where we can find the funds for it. There's funding out there to support affordable housing, so we can go for that. But also, I'm a fan of looking, again, for more progressive taxation.
Okay, thank you. And Jessica, would you like 30 seconds for rebuttal?
Yes, please,
All
thank
right.
you. So one of the things about me is that I work for everyone. I work for people who own buildings like Courthouse Square, the old post office downtown, as well as the KSP building up top. Like I mentioned, I run 100,000 square feet of Tacoma. What people don't realize is every day I'm working to make sure that they can open their businesses, that they can have residences that are all affordable. But at the same time, I have to work for the people who own the building. And I think that's one thing that gets lost in Tacoma, is how it all happens. You have to work on both sides. You have to work with both sides, or you will make someone want to leave. And if people leave, we have nothing.
Ready, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is public safety. We are going to allow rebuttals in this section. Public safety is one of the core responsibilities of local government. Tacoma currently spends $444 million from its general fund on public safety, which includes both police and fire. The police department has 348 commissioned officers. That equates to 1.5 officers for every 1,000 residents. For comparison, the national average is 2.4 officers per 1,000 residents. Looking at crime trends between 2018 and 2024, crimes against persons in Tacoma, such as homicides and assaults, increased by 6.1%. Property crimes, on the other hand, decreased by 2.4% over that same time frame. Homicides are particularly damaging to our community. In 2024, Tacoma had 21 total homicides. This year, through September 21st, Tacoma has already had 18. That puts Tacoma's homicide rate at 9.3% per 100,000 people. The Washington state average is 3.9 per 100,000 residents. The national average is 5 per 100,000 residents. So with that in mind, looking ahead at your 4-year term, What changes would you like to see in Tacoma's public safety system? Specifically, what policies or investments would you prioritize to improve safety for our community? And Latasha, you go first, 90 seconds.
Yeah, so safety is a top priority for me. I'm a mom. I have 3 kiddos, and you know, I think different people have different definitions of safety. You know, even when my kiddos are walking to school as children of color, it's getting more and more where I have to worry about things like, you know, ICE coming in and picking them up even though they're American citizens. That doesn't feel safe. But as far as like the crime rates in that, I think we need to look at, you know, what is causing those things to happen. I support having a police system that is effective and efficient. I've met with our interim police chief, Patty Jackson, and we've had a conversation about the right language to use when we're talking about partnerships between community and the police. I think there needs to be work done there. And the whole city will be better for that. If there is some kind of, so I won't use the word oversight because I know that can be triggering, but I think there needs to be a partnership between the city and the police and the residents. I also think we need to pay attention again to the root causes of the issues. Police can respond to these crimes, but they wouldn't have to respond to these crimes if we were preventing these crimes. So my focus is definitely on prevention. It's looking, I guess that's it.
Yes, thank you. Jessica, 90 seconds, same question.
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned, I have been endorsed by Local 31 and Local 6, and I'm so proud of that. And what makes me really sad is I wasn't allowed to talk about Local 6 until I got the the fire department endorsement, because people thought that would be too polarizing. We are far too polarizing in our community when it comes to safety to actually try to make a change. I understand that people have made bad choices. The police aren't always adequately ready and available to the way we want them to be, but we aren't either. When I was young with my cousin Nathan, we were both people of color. We had great relationships with police. Why? Because we didn't fear them. They were our friends. We looked up to them, and they enjoyed, although we were probably pains in the butts to them, they enjoyed the fact that we knew what we were talking about. So what I want to bring to Tacoma is a lack of fear and safety who's coming before you. I want kids to feel connected to the first responders who are our heroes. They are not villains. Let's stop treating them that way. I've never been about defund the police, but I have been about let's reform. Because I believe any organization, whether it's the city, Courthouse Square, anything that's happening outside of these walls or within these walls, every 10 years should be looked at. How are you spending your money? How are your people actually acting on the policies you've created? Thank you.
All righty, thank you. And Latasha, I had to cut you off mid-sentence. You have 30 seconds of rebuttal time, so you're welcome to finish your thought or to speak about something that your opponent said during her time.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we spend a large part of our budget on policing. And policing, again, can take care of things after the fact, but there's so much we can put our time and attention to and our funding to that can prevent those things from happening. And so if we're wanting to be real partners with the police, make their jobs easier, we will put our time and attention and our funds into prevention.
Ready, thank you. We're going to move on to our next topic, which is business climate. It should come as no surprise that this is an event sponsored by the Tacoma Business Council and Tacoma Rising.
Is it me?
It'll be Jessica this time. And we will allow rebuttals in this section. This year, the City Council conducted a business climate survey. Out of 221 respondents, the average score was 6.34 on a 0 to 10 scale. I think we can agree a 63 is not a passing grade for most of us. Key concerns cited included safety, cleanliness, the cost of doing business, and taxes. Currently, in downtown Tacoma, several commercial properties are in receivership or foreclosure. These include Marriott Tacoma Downtown, parcels planned for the Tacoma Town Center, and what is commonly referred to as Tacoma's graffiti garages. In a community survey, residents reported feeling unsafe or very unsafe downtown, the lowest safety score for any part of our city. And finally, the vacancy rate for commercial properties in the downtown central business district is now 14.52% for the third quarter of 2025. For context, in 2018, that rate was just 5.04%. So with that in mind, what is your view of the current business environment in Tacoma? And in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges facing our existing businesses? And what role, if any, should city government play in addressing those challenges? And you have 90 seconds.
Is that me? Sorry.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I love this topic because I am all about businesses. So I think we've all probably lived here during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we were closed. The city had us closed. Nothing has quite returned. But when we did return, we returned with broken windows, unhoused folks doing a lot of drugs on our streets, and an increase of our business license fee over 400%. And since then, all the taxes, I can't even look them. It's crazy. That is not supportive. So how I think we help our business community would be for the city to step in. As I mentioned, we are, as businesses, the revenue to the city. They need us more than we need them. The city needs to be more flexible, more understanding, take more meetings with those who are trying to be a part of what they're doing, trying to be a part of our destiny. Without the police, what would we have for our small businesses? Without fire, without the master builders, without all the people that make things important, without the groups that are supporting tonight, our businesses are everything. And they're not being supported by our city no matter what they say. So I believe we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to create some sort of, can I, no. Okay.
You'll have rebuttal, so we'll
Thank
give you
you.
30 seconds. Latasha, would you like me to repeat the question? Sure. What is your view of the current business environment in Tacoma? And in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges facing our existing businesses? And what role, if any, should city government play in addressing those challenges? 90 seconds.
So as somebody who has owned a small business myself, I understand the challenges. I understand, trying to keep the doors open. I understand wanting to have a nice place of business where people feel safe to come and shop and spend their time. And I think that's important. I don't think, this position is definitely for the whole city. So it's not just downtown, but I think downtown, it can be an example where we start developing what I like to call a 15-minute city. I guess not what I like to call, what other people like to call a 15-minute city, where people have access to the things that they need within 15 minutes, right? And so if they're living within 15 minutes of a grocery store or a restaurant, they're more likely to visit those things more often, right? And so we don't have that right now in downtown. I think that we need to do some work to get it there. And I don't see it as a business against the city. I don't see it as, needing to come together and butt heads. I think this is another example of where there needs to be more partnership, where you all are at the table and saying, hey, this is what we want, this is what we need, and we're hearing what other folks in the city care about as well, and we're coming together and we're compromising because that's what we do in society. That's how we move forward. We see enough, I think, on the national level of the this and that back and forth. We don't have to do that here in Tacoma. We can work together.
Ready, thank you. And Jessica, you have 30 seconds to finish your thought, or?
Yes, there's one thing I just want to point out, because downtown Tacoma gets a really bad rap. We've opened over 19 businesses in 2025. We have kept many of them. Do we understand there's an issue? Yes. Have we gone to the people who need to help us resolve that? Yes. And we're working on it. But downtown is growing and is a beautiful place to be, more than people think it is. And I want to bring that same kind of growth and movement to every district, every business district in Tacoma. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. And I want to give each of you 15 seconds to be concise in your answer. Is there a city in Western Washington or in the state that you think has figured it out that we might learn a lesson from?
I don't think anyone's figured it out, no, but I've seen great things happen when we're putting community first and having everybody at the table to come up with what's happening. Again, that leads to less back and forth, and I think you see that in like the Bay Area where a lot of folks are coming in and taking more ownership in what's happening in the city.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, same question to you.
I agree that there's a lot of different things that we could do here in Tacoma to make it better, but if I was to look at one city that's in the Pacific Northwest that is doing really well and has grown tremendously in my lifetime, would be to look at Bellevue, Washington. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. The next topic is increasing revenue. One way to grow city revenue without raising taxes is to attract new businesses and help existing ones expand. Do you believe Tacoma is currently competitive with other cities when it comes to attracting investment? And if not, what specific steps would you take to make us more competitive?
I don't think we're competitive at all. I think that Tacoma has had this issue for a very long time where, you know, if somebody says, hey, I live in or work in Tacoma, there's going to be a look of, you know, a little concern there. And I think we continue to kind of perpetuate this idea on ourselves when we're asking for businesses to come in, or we have our hands out and, you know, what can we do for you? What's the next, the tax break that we can bring in, and then instead of, hey, what's this partnership look like? How can we help each other for the city to grow so that we're both stable and healthy for the long run? We don't have this businesses opening up and then having to close because of the issues that we face in Tacoma. I think we can do more when it comes to bringing in green businesses. That's just how things are going. I know that change can be scary and it can be, you know, nobody wants to change. I've come across times in my life where there were things that I just didn't expect, but I had to do what I needed to do to get beyond that. And I think the city needs to support the businesses that are here to be able to meet the moment and progress to where, hey, this is what's coming up. This is the new thing. We want Tacoma to be the center for these things to happen here. Again, the green businesses, sustainable businesses.
Ready, thank you. Jessica, same question.
I absolutely believe that we have the capacity to make Tacoma one of the best cities in America, whether you live here or you're doing business here. But right now, we are failing that mark. So I think we do, as I said, need to get together, have communication, have difficult conversations, and they don't even need to be difficult. It means I say, hey, business over here, how are you feeling? Hey, resident over here, how are you feeling? Shall we get together and try to make something happen that benefits everyone? That is the key here. It is about listening to everyone. Tacoma is an amazing place to live, but the way we are treating people, you don't want to stay here. You don't want to have your business here. You're not sure if your kids want to be here. And that needs to stop. I believe in a hometown kind of value. And that's the kind of gal I am. I believe knowing your neighbors, knowing your businesses, doing workforce development through that, supporting each other, making sure our kids are taken care of, making sure our older folks are taken care of, making sure my middle-aged self is taken care of. We need all of those things here in Tacoma. We don't quite have it. We're almost there, and I feel that we can reach it, but I feel that requires all of us getting together on one page, being one team, so that we can make those choices together that will have a lasting impact. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. And Latasha, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal if you'd like to use that.
Can I give my 30 seconds to Jessica to answer the question?
We will provide 2 minutes at the end for closing.
I'm happy to do it.
Would you like 30 seconds? Sure.
Wait, so perhaps I didn't understand the question? Latasha,
I think what I heard is your opponent
understand.
didn't feel like you fully answered the question.
You feel like I did?
No, I said it sounded to me like your opponent didn't feel like you had fully answered the question. So she is yielding her 30 seconds of rebuttal to you if you'd like to elaborate on your response to the question.
Oh, no, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, we will move on to the next topic, homeless response and camping ban. And we will allow rebuttals in this section as well. Tacoma's current budget for housing and homelessness is $92.6 million. In 2024, the city's HEAL team, the Homeless Engagement Alternatives Liaison, made contact with 2,656 people living on our streets. Out of all of those contacts, only 276 people entered shelter. That's just 9.6%. The Tacoma News Tribune recently reported on our 2025 point-in-time count. Of the 2,037 people surveyed, only 22% said they had lived in Tacoma before becoming unhoused. In other words, just 448 people out of the 2,037 were originally from Tacoma. And finally, as of the end of June, Tacoma reported having 860 shelter beds available. As we've outlined above, Tacoma currently spends millions each year on its homelessness response. However, despite these efforts, the majority of people living on the street do not accept the offer of shelter. With limited tax dollars and many unmet city needs, how would you reshape or prioritize Tacoma's approach so that it is both effective in reducing homelessness and fair to taxpayers? And Jessica, you go first on this, 90 seconds.
Perfect, thank you. This is a really great question, and I worry about our homeless crisis. We definitely have one, and it is taking a toll on our taxpayers. I remember when I first moved to Tacoma, and my former husband worked at the Hobnob, and we met the $1 Million Man. And he wasn't quite homeless, but he almost was. And TNT probably did a report about him.
Your mic keeps going up.
Thank you, Latasha. See, we're friends. We love each other on the inside. No, we really do. But the $1 Million Man, it was a little sad because so many people were giving him help, but he wasn't truly getting help. And so why are we calling him $1 Million Man? Is that an award? How many of those do we want in our society? I would rather see him be lifted up to a place that he could be on his own, as I want to see everyone on our streets on their own. So to me, in order to take this crisis and make it more affordable, we need to get with private sector. We need to start continuing our partnerships with wraparound services and continuum of care in order to get these people from the tragedy that got them on the street to the tragedies they faced on the street into a life where they can succeed and thrive, and again, pay us the tax dollars. Isn't that what it's about? Not fully. We want to enjoy our life. But it is about getting people on their feet. It is about making sure that we're not having to pay for everyone. Should the help be there? 100%.
Ready, thank you. Latasha, same question.
I hear the question.
Sure. With limited tax dollars and many unmet city needs, how would you reshape or prioritize Tacoma's approach so that is both effective in reducing homelessness and fair to taxpayers? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, so I think we might be in agreement from all sides in Tacoma, that whatever we're doing right now is not working. There's money, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars going into placing rocks where people sleep and moving them from this block to the next block, and it's not actually solving the issue. So we need other solutions. When we look to that's what I do, I look to what's happening and what's working in other places, and when we look at what the research shows that works, it's housing first. Housing first, not housing only. And what that means is we put people in homes despite whether they are dealing with mental health issues or drinking issues or addiction issues, because put yourself in their shoes, where would you be more successful in getting over those things? It would be if you had a roof over your head, and that's what we see happening in other cities. So I'm a proponent of that. You don't just throw them in there and leave them be. There also has to be the wraparound services there to support those folks, but it ends up costing the city less money, believe it or not, in order to do that. And it gets folks out off of the street so that people can enjoy the city more. And people are more, they're more likely to get the help and get past the things that they need to get past to become who they want to be.
Alrighty, thank you. We are dangerously close to being on time, so in the interest of time, no rebuttal for this question, but we are at our last question, and then we'd like to be able to give you your full 2 minutes to close, and if you have a rebuttal, you're welcome to use that 2 minutes to offer that rebuttal. The final question of tonight is, that ban enacted in 2022 prohibits camping and storing personal belongings on public property within a 10-block radius of temporary shelters and within 200 feet of mapped waterways. While penalties, including fines and jail time, are authorized in certain circumstances, as of January of this year, the city reported making only 2 arrests under the ordinance. Would you favor expanding, changing, or eliminating Tacoma's current limited camping ban? And what specifically would you do to change the city's current approach, if anything? And Latasha, we start with you.
Okay. Yeah, I think I touched on that already. I'm not a fan of throwing money down the toilet and for things not to actually change. So I'm in support of not expanding it, and in support of not having the camping ban because that money can be better put towards the services that I described, the services that, again, have been shown to have higher success rates than 2 people for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It just takes us, being wanting to look into forward thinking and looking at, again, what's worked and being okay with innovating and maybe trying something new, because I think Tacoma, we're used to doing that. We've done some amazing firsts. We've done some amazing firsts when it's coming to our zoning laws. We've done some great things when it's come to, we've had like really cool pilots around universal basic income. We're not afraid to shy away from firsts, and I think this is something that we should do here that will put us on the map and make other people want to come.
All right, thank you. And Jessica, same question, 90 seconds.
Thank you. We are a city of firsts, and I love that, and I think that's great. I hope that we can be a city of more firsts. I do not accept the camping ban in its current state. When I was young, if I put a tent outside of my house, I would have gotten a call to my mother and a huge fine just for doing that. So now we're allowing cities come up in our neighborhoods where folks aren't taking care of themselves. They are having mental illness breakdowns. They are having addiction breakdowns right in front of us, right in front of our businesses, right in front of our children. That is not okay. We are going to raise a society of very unempathetic people. When my cousins and my nieces and my nephews come and visit me on Hilltop and we have to go to lovely little cafes but walk over people to get there and ignore them, luckily I take the time to tell them how someone might have gotten in that place and hopefully keep them from ever going to that place. But if we just become a society where we walk over people, are you going to sleep well at night? Because I'm not. It is not okay to leave people outside on the streets. There are a lot of great programs. And the one thing that perturbs me the most about Tacoma is that all these programs don't get together to make a bigger change. Because everyone wants their name on it. Everyone wants to say they thought about it. Everyone wants a park bench. I don't care about that.
Ready, thank you. Okay, we've come to closing statements. I'm sure this hour has just flown by.
Oh, yeah.
For closing statement, each candidate will have 2 minutes to share their final thoughts. You may choose to summarize your message to voters or use this opportunity to address or clarify a topic discussed earlier tonight or to rebut something that your opponent said this evening. And given that, Latasha, you gave the opening statement, we're going to let Jessica go first on the closing statement. And it's a tight 2 minutes.
Tight 2 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you. I talk a lot. All right, well, again, thank you to Tacoma Business Council. Thank you to Tacoma Rising for putting this together. It is wonderful when 2 people can come together, 2 organizations especially, to make a difference, to make sure that all of you can hear our voices. Thank you to all of you for coming here to participate. Thank you for voting, thank you for spreading the word, and thank you for being educated and knowledgeable and intelligent about your decisions. We have a huge decision coming up. We get to have a whole new council soon. New city manager, new police chief, new mayor, new council. That's a lot of change. And with your vote, with your participation, we can make it better. Now, people have been asking me, what separates you from your opponent? And honestly, not a lot. We actually both share the same birthday. We both live on Hilltop. We're both women of color. But one of us would be an amazing nonprofit director, and I would be an amazing leader on your city council. Thank you for your vote. Thank you for listening. Elect Jessica. Have a good night.
Ready, thank you. Natasha, 2 minutes.
Thank you all for coming. Again, I think these are very important events to have, so that, and we need to have it more, and I think they need to be more intimate, right? There needs to be a back and forth where you can ask questions, and just know that I'm always available for that at any time. But I just wanted to, again, I guess, reiterate, I guess I wanted to mention, I think Jessica's right, we don't want to keep walking over our homeless folks, and the way to not do that is to give them housing, to get them off of the street. But yeah, so I'm the candidate running for, we're both running at large. I believe I have a little bit more of a broader focus in not just downtown. I care about the whole city. That's what this position is for. I think that we all utilize downtown, and it's important, but we need to make sure that the whole city is being taken care of, and the businesses around our city as well. I'm the only candidate who is actively, proactively engaged in housing solutions. I'm a member of the Aya Community Land Trust project up in Hilltop, creating permanently affordable housing. I'm the only candidate who's had their hand in actually influencing policies in the city through my charter review work, and since then we've continued that work and stayed active at what's happening at City Hall. And I think we're in unprecedented times right now. We've seen what happens when we kind of continue with doing the same thing that we've continued to do, and it's not working. We need more, and we need somebody who's going to have a backbone and the experience to come into the role and start guarding against some of this federal overreach that's happening on day one. I'm going to have of course, a learning curve. There's lots to know, but I believe I'm more equipped to start governing and collaborating with you all on day one. Thank you.
Ready, thank you. Let's give both candidates a round of applause. I will say it takes a lot of courage, especially in this political environment, to get out there and to run and to share your opinion. And thank you for taking the time to share your perspective with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, we have 10 minutes to take a break before we come back, and we have John Hines and Anders Ibsen coming in. All right, so there's snacks outside, there's restrooms. Please do not bring drinks or food in. Bottled water's okay.
You've been hermetically sealed off stage, so we're gonna give you the courtesy of what the rules are for this debate. And we thank everybody that's stayed with us. We're gonna do our best to stay on time. So the ground rules for tonight, each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. For each question, you will have 90 seconds to respond. We will rotate who goes first in order to keep the process fair, and in some instances, I may allow a rebuttal from the first speaker. So we want to keep it, we want you to come up with answers that are specific, right? So if I hear like maybe you didn't answer the question, or we want to hear more specifics to what you're providing the audience, I'm going to push on you a little bit. And then as we get into the debate, we'll have some rebuttal time. So if you want to respond to something you heard your opponent say, we'll give you a chance to do so. You could also take that time to elaborate on something that you may have said earlier. Of course, we ask for civility throughout this debate. You may directly address your opponent, and you are welcome to point out where you disagree with their positions, whether based on what is said here or has been said in other forums. However, those disagreements must be expressed respectfully and with professionalism. At the conclusion of this debate, each of you will have an opportunity for a closing statement. If we stay on time, we hope to allow at least 2 minutes for the closing, but the exact amount of time will depend on how much time remains. During your closing, you may address anything raised in the debate that you feel is important, including comments made by your opponent. Our goal tonight is to give voters a clear understanding of your positions and to allow you to draw distinctions in a way that is informative, constructive, and civil. All right, sound good? Are you ready to begin? Okay. In no particular order, I see John Hines' name at the top of the list. John, we're going to give you a chance to give the audience a 3-minute opening statement. And Anders, you'll have 3 minutes behind him.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is John Hines, and I'm running to be the next mayor of the city of Tacoma because I believe Tacoma could be better. So this past year, I walked across the entire city, 70 miles, over 200,000 steps, from Point Defiance to Hosmer, from Titlow to Browns Point, just to talk to people across our city. And what I heard one thing: a deep love for our city, no matter where I went. No matter if you just got here or you've been here your whole life. I also heard frustration. Frustration that crime's too high, that city services don't meet what people expect, that I don't feel safe with my kid walking to the park, that the business down the street is struggling, and that the city is not meeting what we believe it should be. So I'm running for mayor because I'm frustrated too. And I think we need a mayor today that's demonstrated a history of taking on the tough issues, putting policy in place, and moving it forward to make the city better. So you may ask, hey, John, what's your vision for the city? I want you to imagine for me a city that's safe no matter where you are. So when you call 911, the right person shows up at the right time to help you. When your kids walk to the park, you feel good about it. And when you're a small business owner, you go to bed at night and you wake up the next day knowing your business is still intact. I want you to imagine a city where people can find a home, but not just a roof over their head, a place to raise a family, a place to start a business, a place to be part of the community and thrive. I want you to imagine a city where people not only can find jobs, but careers, and where people can not only start a business, but watch it grow and thrive. What you are imagining is my vision for the city of Tacoma. And I believe I'm the mayor who can help make sure that happens. Because throughout my time, whether housing, homelessness, public safety, tax incentives, affordable housing, or animal welfare, one of my pet projects, I've taken on the tough issues in the city and worked with my colleagues to pull policy across the finish line. And if you look at my record, I am distinguished among everyone on the council for being the person who takes on the tough challenges with policy and makes a difference. And I'm excited to talk to you about how I'm going to make that vision a reality tonight with you all by answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anders, you have 3 minutes.
I guess we're standing up. Hello, everyone. My name is Anders Ibsen. It is such a privilege to see so many familiar faces and making some new friends as well. I'm a lifelong Tacoma resident, born and raised. I love the City of Destiny. It was a privilege to serve as your city council representative from 2012 to 2019, working together with community leaders and my colleagues to pass innovative policies which became the basis for state law, like our middle-of-the-road thoughtful tenant protections, like our increases to the minimum wage, paid sick and safe leave, thoughtful environmental protections, and economic development routes. And I'm running for mayor simply because this is my hometown. I've seen the great things that we have accomplished when we work together, and I'm also frustrated by the gaps that hold us back. I too have engaged a lot of people at the door since this campaign began in January. I've had the privilege of speaking with over 15,000 households throughout all the different Tacoma neighborhoods. And people want to feel pride in our city. There's a lot of love for the hometown, whether they're deeply rooted families or newer people who've come to the City of Destiny. But there's a lot of frustration and there's a lot of fear, frankly. Like the woman I spoke to who's a recently retired social worker who, during her last years on the job, was seeing people in walkers being referred to homeless shelters, for example. Or the teenage girl that I met in a homeless shelter on Portland Avenue. Or the single woman that I met in the Lincoln district who tells me that when she walks her dog, she drives him to the North End first. I mean, as one of the both North Enders running for this office, I take umbrage at that because everyone should feel safe to walk their dog, whether you're a single person, whether you're walking your kid in a stroller or what have you. People deserve to feel safe. People deserve to feel that kind of connectivity to their neighborhood. And so what I'm really interested in doing, if elected as mayor, is making sure that we can actually bridge the gap between our aspirations and our good intent, which I believe we have lots in our city government, and the actual follow-through. Because it shouldn't take this kind of crisis. It shouldn't take speaking to people like the Lincoln district, like the Lincoln high school teacher I spoke with, who in the last 2 years lost 4 kids to gun violence. It shouldn't take that level of carnage and sheer loss to rouse us into urgency. We can do better. And so I'm very interested in working with community leaders to have better process, from everything from the policies that we form to the process that brings you in, to the people that we hire from the executive level onward, to make sure that you are baked into the decision making and that everything that affects you, you are a part of. So I'm very much looking forward to your questions. I'm looking forward to having not just a process of taking your questions and feedback as a candidate, but as your mayor, because those conversations begin with the swearing in, begin with the process, because we have a lot of work to do as a city to rebuild trust and to bring our city to higher levels of greatness than we've ever had before. Thank you again. Looking forward to your questions.
Alrighty, thank you both. And Anders, we just want to make certain that you've got water. We just gave John a fresh one.
Oh, thank you.
And you're right back up, so if you
Okay.
need a second to take a drink.
Okay.
But given that we are here at the historic Lincoln High School on the east side, we wanted to kick off your debate with a question from a longtime resident of Tacoma's east side. Sure. Lisa H. asked the following. Fred Meyer was one of our largest retailers, and now it's closing due to safety and economic challenges. What immediate steps will you take to prevent more businesses on the east side from leaving? How will you make this community safe enough to attract new businesses? And Anders, you're first, 90 seconds.
Well, you said the word safety, Scott, and that's where it begins and ends. So I'm very heartened by the recent hiring of the 10 lateral officers at TPD. I think the most immediate certainty that we can give business owners as well as residents is a swift confirmation of the Tacoma Police Chief, along with firming up the selection and confirmation of all the people serving under the chief, and ensuring that TPD is not only fully staffed, but that we're supporting our police department too. And that's not simply with enforcement, but also ensuring that there's adequacy with community liaison officers, with our civilian support staff, like our crisis responders, for example, and also making sure that we're maximizing as many advantages as we can through community organizations, so it's not just us looking to the city, but also in that Kennedy spirit. What more can we do, right? What can we do for our city? Speaking of organizations like Safe Streets, neighborhood block watch groups, what more can we do there? But safety isn't simply about law enforcement. Law enforcement, code enforcement are crucial pieces of the puzzle. But for me, safety is just as much about vitality and livability and opportunity. And so when I've been walking through the east side and the south end, for example, I've seen incredible wins in the form of capital investments like East 64th Street, for example, which are besides being new shiny streets, have radically curved speeding and traffic, new street trees, for example, beautification of the neighborhood, the neighbors love it. And so making sure we can have a follow-through plan to enliven that neighborhood so that we're not simply enforcing our way out of the problem, but making sure that the neighborhood has a vitality that attracts more business and makes people feel safer.
Ready, thank you. John, 90 seconds, same question.
Yeah, the question begins with safety, right? So how do we, when we look at a large employer like Fred Meyer that has left our city and has said very clearly that safety was a real issue there, I think we have to take that very seriously and approach it in a strategic way. I was long concerned that some of the issues that were there around there were going to lead it to potentially leave because of loss. We'd heard that for quite a while. So as mayor, one thing I would agree with, I'm very proud of our lateral hire program that brought 10 new officers and hopefully 10 more to fill out our ranks. So part of it is police response, but what I think I'd like you to answer that question specifically about how we keep businesses on the east side is I really want to see us look at the problem, not just as a police problem, but as a whole organization problem, as a citywide problem. So it's code enforcement, it's community and economic development, it's tax and licensing. It's all parts of the organization working proactively with the businesses on the east side saying, what are your issues? What are your barriers? What are the problems you're running into? And how can we be part of the solution, not either not addressing the problem or being part of the problem in some cases? And I think with the mayor's role, really bringing a spotlight to working with those businesses, maybe we could have avoided Fred Meyer from leaving. But if we can't avoid Fred Meyer from leaving, maybe through the conversations and actions with these businesses and asking them what they need and bringing the full organization there, we might stop the next one from leaving too.
Ready, thank you. And John, this next question is for you, and there will be no rebuttals in this section. And the topic is budget and priorities. We now want to focus on Tacoma's financial future. Earlier this evening, we outlined the city's budget challenges. Revenues are down, spending is up, and Tacoma is facing a projected $15 million deficit in the 2027-2028 budget. With that backdrop in mind, let's hear how each of you would lead the city through these financial pressures. And John, we'll start with you, 90 seconds.
All right. I think the first and foremost is the next mayor is going to have a real conversation with the council about priorities. What is it the city has to do, and what is the things the city should do, and what are things we have to identify partners to take on? So is there nonprofits? Are there other government entities or government agencies who can take on some of the work that we're doing to help us focus our efforts on what we have to do as a city? So that tough prioritization conversation is coming. It's never pleasant to say the city should stop doing things, but as mayor, my question and conversation with the next city manager is I want a stop, start, continue chart. What are we going to stop doing? What are we going to start doing? And what do we need to continue to do? But if we really want to attack the budget deficit, the critical thing is we have to grow the number of people doing business in the city of Tacoma. That is the number one thing. If we can get more businesses in the city of Tacoma, they will pay business taxes. I'm not talking about raising taxes, just pay more business taxes. And if they are here, they'll also generate sales tax revenue, which will help our budget. And also, if they're commercial properties that are now more valuable because businesses are using them, they will raise our property tax values in a way that doesn't burden our homeowners. Because I hear a lot of homeowners say, my property taxes keep going up, John, I can't keep up. And so supporting the business community and growing that part of the pie is the most critical piece of the work for the mayor in the next budget cycle to really make sure we can keep doing what we have to do and also set us up for success in the future.
Ready, thank you. Anders, same question, 90 seconds.
Well, it's a two-part answer because there are the technical things that we have at our disposal, and then there's the broader theme, which so many voters have talked to me about, and that's the theme of credibility and trust. When I was in my first term on the city council, and I guess I'm bad luck because it was a terrible budget when I was signing up there as well, is what I did, which went really against the grain of the city's prior budgeting process, was making sure that the city manager took the budget to the people first before the departmental recommendations came in, so that we actually heard from people about what their larger priorities were, so that instead of simply educating people about our brilliant ideas, we actually baked in their priorities, and that became the permanent basis for how the city budgeting process moved forward, was starting with the people first, then baking in those larger priorities to the staff recommendations to the council before the entire dog and pony show and amendments and so forth. So the fact that we've had 2 failed levies for really crucial core services, I think, is very telling. People want their streets paved. I mean, that's a perennial Tacoma complaint. People value public safety and EMS. And the fact that these are 2 things that have failed at the ballot, I think, is very telling in a city that usually passes those things. So making sure that we have a very clear plan of attack is essential, and just being as thoughtful as possible with all the levers that we have, namely revenue, making thoughtful choices about prioritization with scarce resources, but also levers that we don't necessarily talk about, like smarter management of our debt, because that has general fund implications, having an actual plan for economic development that's more focused on cities, the assets that we can do comparatively well, so we're growing our tax base, and looking at non-traditional revenue sources as well, so that we can grow the pie and make sure we can preserve core services.
Ready, thank you. All right, next question. Budgets are about choices, and choices often mean trade-offs. Given Tacoma's projected deficit, please explain one area where you would look to reduce spending and one area where you would protect or even increase investment. And why did you choose those? And yeah, Anders, I'm sorry, we're starting with you.
Sure, okay.
90 seconds.
Yeah, budgets are absolutely about choices, and I think the choice that matters the most is that of the voters. So there's no way around the fact that we have to make sure that we're investing crucially in public safety and infrastructure. Those are some of the core foundational services that the city has to offer to you, is keeping you safe, keeping the lights on, keeping your streets drivable, and also economically maintaining the freight corridors that drive the economic engine of Tacoma Pierce County. And so making sure that your voice is a part of this is really critical and essential. Something that I think is really important also is, as we look over the budget line by line, even as we make those tough conversations about budgets that are pared down or maybe employees that are retreated out or moved into different departments, for example, these are all things that I've done before in past budget cycles. I also remember crucially one time that there were some genuine inefficiencies. Like I remember I think it was the Capital Facilities Department had an assistant to the director, for example. So making sure that we're looking really line by line to do justice to the people and looking through the budget. But we really have to make the case from a position of credibility, and in so doing, making sure that we're promoting the things that keep the city safe and build our foundation from which we can grow long-term wealth.
Thank you. John, 90 seconds, same question. Do you mean to refresh your memory?
Yeah.
Sure. So budgets are about choices, and choices often mean trade-offs. Given Tacoma's projected deficit, please explain one area where you would look to reduce spending and one area you would protect or even increase investment, and why did you choose those? 90 seconds.
Great. So I've spent my life working for large organizations, whether school districts, cities, nonprofits. We always have to look at efficiencies in what we're doing. And I think the city has some real opportunities at looking across the organization to think about, are there duplications of services across different departments? So one thing that is a clear example, we have a shop for the fire department, we have a shop for public works, we have a shop for Tacoma Power, we have a shop for Tacoma Water. We also have a shop for Metro Parks Tacoma, and we have a shop for the city school district. So we were talking about a conversation of bringing all those together in one place to capture some efficiencies. Like, we don't need separate buildings for each one. So can we capture some efficiencies around how we allocate our resources? That's just one clear example. I wanted to give you a clear one. I think there's another way we can look at infrastructure, informational technology. Lots of cities are looking at how we can use IT and IT tools to really reduce the amount of inefficiencies and overhead required to operate. I'd really like to see. When we talk about protecting things, I think it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And safety is one of the top priorities. And I've taken tough votes on budgets to protect public safety over the last few years. It's the reason why the firefighters and the police officers are supporting me, is because I've taken tough votes and shown that public safety is my top priority. But again, public safety is more than just police and fire, but at the end, that's going to be my priority.
Ready, thank you. And we are going to move on. Our next topic is public safety. Rebuttals are allowed in this section. Anders, you're going to go first. Public safety.
No, it's me. It's John.
No, I'm sorry. Public safety is one of the most important responsibilities of local government, and it's a top concern for many Tacoma residents. Tacoma has 348 commissioned police officers, which works out to 1 officers for every 1,000 residents. That's significantly below the national average of 2.4 officers per 1,000 residents. When we look at crime trends, the picture is mixed. Since 2018, crimes against persons, like assaults and homicides, have increased by just over 6%, while property crimes have declined slightly. Homicides are especially troubling. In 2024, Tacoma saw 21 homicides, and this year, through September 21st, we already have 18. That puts Tacoma's homicide rate at 9.3 per 100,000 people, well above the national average of 3.9, the state average of 3.9, and the national average of 5. With those realities in mind, we'd like to begin our discussion by asking each of you to define what a safe community means. What does that look like for Tacoma in your vision? And how would you measure progress towards achieving it? And John, you'll go first, 90 seconds.
Yeah, as I talked about in the vision, is we want to be a city where everyone feels safe no matter where you are. So part of that is police, right? It's getting us to a fully staffed police department, which we haven't had since my time on council. And we're getting closer and closer with our lateral hires. What does more police mean? It means not only do we just have people who can respond to your 911 calls, it means that we can be more proactive. We can be more engaged in the community. We can bring back CLOs. We can bring back an officer downtown that could be working with business owners, working with residents to address problems before they start or before they become so bad that we see the escalating violence we've seen. I think also we need to look at the police who support around safety too. So we have our alternative response models that we've been standing up, our community service officers, our HOPE team out of the fire department, our HEAL team that responds to homelessness. These are all pieces of how we address safety in multifaceted ways that's not just the police department, but gets at the issues we're talking about. And it hasn't worked as well as we'd like. There's still too much crime in this community that we have to fix and address that I'm committed to doing and putting dollars behind our police department and our alternative response models to get there. I think beyond that, we also have to think about issues bigger than just police. It's how are we investing in communities? How are we building connections between young people and their after-school activities so they're not turning to violence? How are we building connections between community groups, incredible messengers, and community capacity so we see less crime overall?
All right, and John, I'm going to give you 15 more seconds because I'd like to hear how you would measure it.
How I'd measure it. I think the critical one is the homicide rate has to go down, number one, and then number two, you'd want to see the number of crimes per person on property to go down too, and those would be the clear metrics on my dashboard in the mayor's office, and I'd be looking at those every day.
Thank you. Anders, there was a long preamble. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, please, 90 seconds.
All right, thank you. So safety is foundationally about how you feel. So safety would mean that that woman that I met in the Lincoln District would feel safe to walk her own dog in her own neighborhood by herself. That is a safe city. And I'm in very strong agreement that it's not simply about law enforcement, although getting adequate staffing is essential. As a member of the city council back in my time serving, I would go on ride-alongs almost every year, usually graveyard with TPD as well as TFD. As a preparation for this race, I did the same thing. I did a graveyard in 4 sector, which is right around here in Lincoln and south of 56th, along with TFD as well. And there's a lot of frustration from the frontline employees carrying out the work, from the citizens who have to wait 30, 40 minutes. And so adequate staffing, it certainly begins and ends with that, along with just greater certainty from the community in terms of making sure that we're setting up the new chief with TPD for success. But it also means partnerships, especially in an era of tighter budgets. It means doing all that we can to better leverage our community organizations, our after-school programs like summer late nights, for example, Whole Child, making sure that we're investing as much on the front end through prevention before the problems start, and also smarter regional partnerships whenever we can. So for example, a lot of the concerns in the Northeast neighborhood in Tacoma, for example, especially the areas bordering Federal Way, I think that could be a greater opportunity for collaboration there. Same thing with the Puyallup tribe with their police force. They have similar concerns about public safety and homelessness, for example, and just doing the best we can to make use of those efficient partnerships.
All right, and Anders, don't sit down yet. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. Same question, how would you measure it?
Certainly. So besides the basic metrics that the council already uses through Tacoma 2035, for example, in terms of crimes against people and property, frankly, the measurement that I think is just as important as in terms of measuring how people feel is the input in the community. What are you telling us? And also just having a more forward-facing process for engaging the community. How do you feel about your community? Do you have faith in us?
All righty, thank you. And we're going to stay with you, Anders.
There we go.
Still in the topic of public safety, talking about treatment of nonviolent property crime. So some in our community have suggested that police resources should be focused only on the most serious, high-priority offenses. Others argue that a failure to prosecute so-called nonviolent crimes can create a sense of disorder and make neighborhoods feel less safe. Do you believe Tacoma should prioritize certain crimes over others when it comes to policing and prosecution? And you have 90 seconds.
Well, it's not a black and white answer because human beings are not either or. There's a lot of variety. If you look at the Fred Meyer on Pack Ave, for example, I mean, it was absolutely rampant shoplifting. It was the shady activity in the back alley, for example, which I walked past on numerous occasions talking with people and speaking with folks who shopped there for decades, and that was absolutely an issue. But again, is the issue solely within the realm of law enforcement? Yes and no. Does there need to be a greater sense that there are consequences? Yes. People can't just brazenly take a shopping cart into a store, fill it up, and then leave without people being able to do anything about it. That's ridiculous. At the same time, if all we're doing is focusing on enforcement to the exclusion of structural factors, then we're just going to kick the can down the road and repeat the same thing. So what I would focus specifically within the realm of property crime, because it's not like people start with capital offenses, I mean, they usually work their way up, is biasing as much of our attention on the preventative side as much as possible, because someone having a future, being housable, being employable, that's someone who's much less likely to be a criminal, for example. And as someone falls further into that problem area, making sure that we're focusing intelligently on reducing recidivism. That's the key, is making sure that we're saving precious tax dollars and saving precious lives by ensuring that if a young person, for example, makes some bad lapses in judgment, that there might be a future down the road along with accountability for their actions, and that we're saving precious dollars on incarceration that could be spent on someone actually developing a life and developing a future for the city by extension.
Ready, thank you. John, same question, 90 seconds.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I would say, and why I've been a big supporter of why we get to full staffing, is we don't have officers, then the priority is always going to be the violent crime. It's always going to be the shots fired, the homicides, the violent crime in action, because we have to get there. Because violent crime ripples out through the community. It has impacts beyond people. So one of the reasons why I'm a huge supporter of more officers is we can move past just running from 911 call to 911 call to 911 call and actually get out and be proactive. And so I think that the way we get to property crime is a full staff police department, and then our officers working proactively with business owners, working proactively with neighbors, working with code enforcement, working with organizations like Safe Streets, which Anders and I have both been part of, and I'm recently just left being the board chair of. Working with communities to try to be out in front, because I'm a teacher. And what I know is if you intervene early, you stop behaviors from escalating beyond. And so I think this early intervention of taking property crime seriously and intervening with people committing low-level offenses through prosecution, but also connecting them to services. Because we can't get people services, we can't get them the resource they need unless we're interacting with them when they commit a crime, potentially entering them to the criminal justice system and connecting them to these things. So I think we need to do both. We're going to respond to violent crime, but we also need to be intervening with the property crime more regularly, breaking up the cycle so we don't see it escalate and continue to be a problem that we see kind of rampant in our community.
Ready, thank you, John. Anders, you do have 30 seconds for a rebuttal if you're interested in expanding on an answer or challenging something that your opponent has said.
Yeah, sure. And this isn't a rebuttal or a challenge, but just further elaborating on what we mean. At the end of the day, whether you're looking at the phrase in Chicago was broken windows, but even if you do or don't subscribe to that, the reality is whether we're attacking the violent crime that we're seeing on the rise or whether you're attacking property crime as a whole, when we're investing in our neighborhoods and as much on the front end with the preventative care that we can give to our children, that's really the highest and best return. And that in partnership with full staffing of our law enforcement professionals, that's what's really going to get us the highest prize, which is the safety of our community.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to the business climate. We've talked about Tacoma's budget and about public safety, both of which connect directly to the next topic, which is business climate. As we've discussed, the city's business climate survey made clear that many business owners feel the city is falling short. Their top concerns were safety, cleanliness, the cost of doing business, and taxes. With those realities in mind, we'd like to begin by asking, what does a healthy, thriving business climate look like to you for Tacoma? And what would your top priority as mayor be to achieve it? You have 90 seconds. Yeah, John, you're
first. Yeah. No, I think when we think about a healthy business climate, it's a place where people want to start a business, they want to expand a business, they want to grow a business, and where businesses want to come here. So to do that, I think addressing the issues that came up in the business climate survey are critical. First of all, do we have a safe place to do business? When you open a business or expand a business or grow a business, do you feel like your investment is protected? So safety is critically important. I think the second part is, as a city, you have to see us as a partner, someone who walks alongside of you in those processes. And I've heard from too many businesses, they don't see the city as a partner, they see us in the way. They see us as an object that's in the way. And so one of the things I want to do as mayor is how do we get the city out of being in the way and working closer with businesses with that metric in mind of how do we help your business grow from a small business to a mid-sized business and from a mid-sized business to a larger business. I think the other piece is we have to be clear that we want to provide stability. I don't want to talk about raising taxes on businesses. All the other cities around us are. I want to talk about attracting businesses to grow the pie. And I think that will be an important value for us, is we're going to keep our taxes the same and invite more businesses to come here and help us grow. And that further growth will feed upon itself. And I think that is really how we get a business climate that we can all believe in and value.
All right, thank you, Anders. Same questions to you on creating a thriving business climate in Tacoma.
Yeah, well, as the business owner running for this position, I have absolute empathy for the struggles that so many of Tacoma's business owners have been going through. I know literally what it means to have to forego paying yourself as the owner just so you can keep your people on their payroll, for example, until things even out. And a lot of people are struggling. I mean, whether you own a business, whether you're simply 1099, whether you're trying to scale up, it can be really challenging. And there are a lot of parallels between business friendliness and safety for me. For me, safety, for example, is really about how you feel, like the level of pride, the level of safety, the level of security when you're going about your business, or whether you're trying to enjoy your neighborhood with your family. And it's really the same thing for business friendliness, is how do you feel when you're interacting with the city? And just in general, how do you feel about your city, period? There was a business owner I spoke with who was trying to bring investors from up north to Tacoma to try to help with something that could have been really cool in our downtown prior to the pandemic. And he made another attempt, but he stopped short because of all the trash lining the freeway and a lot lying around 75 and the Highway 7 overpass, for example. And that kind of image really was haunting to him, for example. And so making sure that we actually have a very clear-cut process that doesn't speak to people as just broad groups, but more specifically, because the issues facing Proctor or Stadium are different than those facing Hilltop or Fern Hill, for example. And making sure that we're working in partnership with our entrepreneurs, not simply to reduce barriers, but to help them with strengths. To make sure that we're not simply coming as the government and I'm here to help necessarily, but what is already working and how can we feed the fire that's already there entrepreneurially, and what can we do to feed that strength that's already there?
Ready, thank you. And John, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal if you'd like to use that to elaborate or push back on something you heard your opponent say.
I mean, yes. What I would say is one of the critical things the mayor can do with trying to bring new business here is to be open and receptive and encourage them to be here. I would just point out that my opponent's number 3 item on his list of accomplishments is ending corporate welfare, which by what he means is raising taxes on the 2 largest employers in our city. And while I wasn't there for that budget choice about why we need to do that, I don't think that screams to businesses that we are open and ready for businesses to invest here. And so I think that's something that's really important to point out as a contrast between him and I.
Ready, thank you. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is downtown. Anders, you're going to be first to start. 5 years after the pandemic, downtown is still struggling with low foot traffic, vacant storefronts, and a lack of vibrancy. Several high-profile properties, including the Marriott Tacoma Downtown, parcels planned for the Tacoma Town Center, and the graffiti garages, are now in receivership or foreclosure. Residents also report feeling less safe downtown than any other part of the city, and the commercial vacancy rate in the downtown central business district has climbed to more than 14% compared to just 5% in 2018. What specific steps would you take as mayor to help revitalize downtown and bring back activity, investment, and a sense of safety? You have 90 seconds.
Sure, so the struggle with downtown is really two things. First and foremost, it's poor design. It's the sense that ever since the mall came in 1950 and the city's response to that, how they responded was by suburbanizing the downtown effectively, so making it feel like less of an urban center. And it's interesting because when you look at areas that the city proactively invested in, like with the Pacific Avenue streetscapes around, again, the places that just organically grew through that entrepreneurial energy, like around the Matador, Wooden City, the Mix, for example, those places actually have nightlife. You can actually walk around there. And you see this in other corners of the city as well that aren't necessarily downtown, like South Tacoma Way. I mean, go to the Mule, the airport, what have you. And a lot of that was due to an investment by Theory Real Estate and others. And that's a good example of what the city can do is make sure that the infrastructure is actually aligned, by what we've done around Pacific Avenue streetscapes, streets like East 64th and 40th, for example, and making the infrastructure more conducive. And also just on a personal note, working hand in hand with the entrepreneurs to specifically identify the barriers that they face and rectify that. And that's different for every single neighborhood. If I can respond a little bit to the last question real quick, what I will say is that I think it's very fitting that on the one hand, my opponent talked about about the need for fuller funding for law enforcement and fire, when that was literally something that was on the chopping block in 2010 when I first got on the city council. We were literally talking about the 2 most yes, the highest employing private sector entities in the city, but we were literally talking about multi-billion-dollar organizations receiving a tax break when we were talking about laying off firefighters and cops. And guess what? They expanded even
All right,
after we cut the
Anders,
tax
I'm
break.
gonna cut you there. You do have 30 seconds at the end for rebuttal, so if you want to finish that thought. John, you have 90 seconds, same topic.
Can you repeat the question for me one more time, Scott?
Sure. So I'm not going to read the full
Just basically you
preamble,
want concrete
right?
things that we
So
can do
understanding that
downtown.
we have properties in receivership downtown and it's struggling, what are you going to do as mayor to help revitalize downtown and bring back that activity, investment, and a sense of safety?
So as someone who's been working with a lot of downtown business owners, I think it's important not to start with a history lesson about why downtown is not working anymore and begin with what we can actually do to make downtown better. So what am I going to do as mayor? First and foremost, we need to get another CLO back downtown, which is something we lost when we reduced budgets. So having an officer downtown who can work with business owners to address kind of the crime in proactive ways to make it safe so more people want to come downtown. Because when I talk to business owners, the thing they tell me is my customers don't feel safe or my employees don't feel safe. So we have to deal with that. Number two, I'd like to start a task force working with property owners downtown and looking at vacant spaces and work to try to connect them in a matchmaking way to entrepreneurs who want those spaces. Because we have downtown business owners who want to fill spaces, but we got to make sure we're making the connections there and fill those spaces up. And then finally, I brought it before, I do think we have to talk seriously about our city employees and how often they're in the office, because it's important as we, as the largest employer in downtown, of which downtown really depends upon, we have to think about how we are contributing to the foot traffic, the vibrancy, and what's happening down there to make it less of a kind of 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. city and more of a 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. city in downtown.
All righty, thank you. And Anders, you do have 30 seconds to rebut this question or to provide context on a previous question if you'd like.
Sure. So the reality is a smattering of municipal employees is not going to be the shot in the arm. I don't think that's really going to be what it takes to revitalize the downtown, because the reality is we've seen this already with the big 5 tech companies and their march towards return to the office. I was just on I-405 the other day, and that was all those Amazon employees being forced to return to the office. And the reality is they're brown bagging because they're broke like most people, okay? So if that's the thing that the downtown business community is waiting for, even if that was rigorously enforced, I don't necessarily think that's what's going to be the answer. The reason why downtown is not what we're needing right now is because it's not really set up to be a downtown. Better utilization of programs like commercial to residential conversion will be a faster return.
Right, thank you. And I want to just speed round 15 seconds each. Start with John. Would you identify a city who has activated their downtown, either in Western Washington, throughout the state, other parts of the country, that we could use as an example of something to help us revitalize our downtown?
I mean, I think the best example we look at is Bellevue and Redmond on the east side, where I think they've done a really good job of inviting partners back, creating spaces where people want to be, and partnering the nonprofit, arts, culture, business sectors together to make it more vibrant for more people to go to.
All righty, thank you. Same question, Anders, 15 seconds.
Vancouver and Spokane, respectively. Spokane, because they preserved a lot of their historic buildings, they activated their waterfront. Vancouver, similarly, they have a really interesting balance between their working waterfront and public access. They've done a really good job. They're starting to revitalize their downtown.
All righty, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our next topic, homelessness and the camping ban. And rebuttals will be allowed in this section. Homelessness response. As we outlined above, Tacoma currently spends millions each year on its homelessness response. However, despite these efforts, the majority of people living on the street do not accept the offer of shelter. With limited tax dollars and many unmet city needs, how would you reshape or prioritize Tacoma's approach so that it's both effective in reducing homelessness and fair to taxpayers? We'll start with John, 90 seconds.
Yeah, the critical piece of it is we have to look at how we create a system where people move through from the streets to shelter and housing with services and on into housing. The challenge is we have people who kind of come into shelter and services and get stuck. They get stuck in a tiny home, they get stuck in one of our shelters, and we have to try to find ways to help move people through, which is why we are investing in housing and more affordable housing. It's why we've done Home in Tacoma and more housing options. So as we build housing and we move people in from the streets into shelter and on, we're able to see greater throughput. We're able to see people to move through and on with their lives. I think one of the things we found as a city is we understand what people really want. They want some privacy, they want access to services, they want shelter. Tiny homes work very well, especially with wraparound services. I'm a big supporter of that. I'd like to see expansion of those, but with a real clear metric of how we are moving people through the tiny homes and into housing, and really looking at efficiencies about helping people get the resources they need and move on. I'm on the Pierce County Opioid Task Force, so I think a lot about how we not only match housing, but also substance use disorder resources with these same folks to make sure that they're getting not only just a place to live, but all the resources around to help them transition on in their lives. And I think we could be much more focused, creating kind of hubs in our city where we could send people and then help them move through and on with their lives.
Ready, thank you. Andrew, same question, 90 seconds.
So the main concern so many people in the neighborhoods that I've spoken with, especially the most affected, like in districts 3, 4, and 5, is the fact that the city's response to homelessness, while certainly well-intentioned and certainly having made progress, is that there's a lot of duplication and siloing. That's why there's a regional conversation right now happening with the county, and that when it comes to enforcement, we're largely cycling people through different neighborhoods, and that's one of the biggest challenges, and it's something that I'm a little bit curious about with the current proposal, is that I have literally seen with my own eyes as I go into different neighborhoods repeatedly, the same encampment that was swept come right back. I've heard from people who've talked about people coming from different neighborhoods to those areas. And if we're talking about cost, which the current proposal doesn't even acknowledge what the future cost might be to therapeutic court, for example, if it is utilized, if we're talking about budget scarcity, if we're talking about fully staffing our police department, paving our streets, for example, if we're continuing to basically cycle people through neighborhoods without a direct connection both to a clearly identified service as well as what kind of regional connection there might be, we're just going to see more of the same instead of meaningful improvement. That's the first concern. The second is making sure that we're not painting with such a broad brush. When we think of homelessness, we're thinking of the most visible group of people, but the needs of low barrier folks with maybe mental health challenges or comorbid substance abuse challenges are not the same as McKinney-Vento kids, which at Lincoln it's 1 in 10, for example, can you believe that? Or kids aging out of the foster care system, or just people who are broke and can't afford the rent and just need help keeping the roof over their heads. We actually need to treat people like people, not just one large, overbroad group.
Ready, thank you. I have a follow-up, 30 seconds for each of you. In your position as mayor, you would be in a regional leadership position. We learned earlier tonight that when we conducted a survey of the snapshot, that only around 20% of respondents said they were Tacoma residents before they experienced homelessness. So with 30 seconds, tell us, what are you going to do in a leadership role as mayor to ensure that we have humanistic policies that are fair to taxpayers? Yeah, John, you go first.
I mean, I think you'll hear both of us say this is where the unified regional approach is really important, where it's partnering with the county and other cities to make sure they're taking on their fair share. 80% of the shelter beds are inside the city of Tacoma for the entire county, which means our taxpayers are paying an undue share of the services and shelter for people in our community because we care. But it's important that if people become homeless in other parts of the county, they should move there. They should be served there, let me be clear. They should get services in the communities they're from. And we can't let other parts of the county basically depend upon our goodwill and our voters' willingness to pay for the services.
Ready, thank you. Anders, 30 seconds, same question.
Yes, the unified regional approach is key. That's why it's so hard to see not just members of the county council, but represent other municipal cities. It's certainly progress from when we used to have a stated policy, seen from UPL, to literally just bring people to the rescue mission. So that is really good progress. But in terms of actual specifics, what I think we can really do to engender that is bake this into the selection process for staff to make sure people that we're hiring, like for the upcoming city manager role, actually have direct experience and have a real plan of attack for facilitating those regional conversations. It's not just policy, it's the day-by-day staff implementation.
Ready, thank you. And one more question before we move off this topic, specifically focused on the camping ban. Would you favor expanding, changing, or eliminating Tacoma's current limited camping ban? And what specifically would you do to change the current approach, if so? And Anders, 90 seconds to you.
Sure, and I stated something in my last statement, but one thing specific I'd really be interested in doing is taking some of the money that we're already spending on enforcement, which, and I'm not disputing the need for some enforcement. I mean, I'm not in disagreement with my opponent that people deserve to have access to public spaces, whether it's parks, forests, what have you. The problem is if it's enforcement in isolation or without a clear strategy, then it's not really enforcement, it's just perpetuation. So something, fiscal constraints I'd really be interested in exploring would be some of the money spent on HEAL team enforcement and seeing what we can do if we put it to prevention, in just keeping people housed, for example, like rapid housing or rental assistance, expanding utility assistance in partnership with TPU, for example, working with our faith community, working from our nonprofit partners, and seeing, just like with public safety and investing in our youth, what more can we do to invest on the front end to prevent people from falling into the chaos to begin with?
Okay, and 15-second follow-up for you, Anders. So would you favor expanding, changing, or eliminating?
Changing, that's what I'm saying.
Great, thank you. John, same question, 90 seconds.
Yeah, so, as the person who kind of is responsible for the original camping ordinance and bringing forward a second one, I am looking at changing it, which will bring some reductions in some areas and expansion in others. But what I would say, and I have to make sure this is really clear, that my opponent says that we don't have a plan or a strategy. And just because he hasn't read the plan or strategy the city has, we passed one in 2022 that lays out what our goals and objectives are for ending homelessness. And I utilize that strategy as I think about approaching how we keep our public spaces open to the public and balancing the shelter and services we're offering. I just also like to point out that my opponent was on the council in 2017 when they voted to ban camping citywide. And they voted again in 2017. And voted again in 2018 to extend it for another year. And when we look at the record of what he said, he didn't say anything when he voted for it. I've been very clear about my vision and values and views around homelessness, about balancing shelter like the shelter by my house and keeping our public spaces open to the public. It's my opponent doesn't seem to want to talk about where he lands with specifics about what he sees the path forward is and how it's different than our current plan. And I would just challenge him to speak clearly to that to the public because I think it's important for them to understand. So my proposal is looking at changing some of the buffers areas because we have found success that in the buffer zones, people are more receptive to the shelter and housing we're offering. We have HEAL team employees that are working out there with compassion to connect with folks. I think there's lots of ways we can improve and change it. And I'm hopeful the conversation with my colleagues in the future will help us get closer to that. Thank you.
Ready, thank you. And Anders, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal if you'd like.
Absolutely, sure. Challenge accepted, my friend. So yes, I did vote. I also voted for, in that same year, direct funding for tiny home villages. Like I said, just to reiterate, it's not complicated. The issue isn't choosing between enforcement or services, yes or no. It's not a black and white issue. It's quite multifaceted. I think your average person grasps that. But having aimless enforcement in the absence of a clear connection to services, because effectively, if you're talking about expanding enforcement without any kind of clear connection, or even addressing for the fiscal impact of that, you're just setting up you're just setting up the city for more of the same and just a perpetuation of the problem in some of the poorest neighborhoods in the city too.
All righty, thank you. Okay, you can take a deep breath. We've come to the last question of the evening, and it's on leadership and governance. And we will allow time for rebuttals in this section with a focus on leadership approach. As mayor, you will need to persuade a minimum of 4 council members to move your priorities forward. What is your leadership philosophy or approach, and how you build support for your policies? John, you go first. You have 90 seconds.
Yeah. I think the critical piece of this is knowing my colleagues, understanding kind of what their vision is, what they want to accomplish, and really working with them to try to align what we're doing with that. And I trust that all my colleagues are aligned with the public, that they're out talking to their constituents, they're out talking to the public, and they understand. So by aligning with my colleagues, in a way, I believe that we're actually getting closer to what the public wants to see. And I think on my time on council, I've demonstrated an ability to really build coalitions and get things done. Something I said, and I have to apologize to my opponent because I brought this up in another forum, something I said is, since I've been on the council, I've passed 10 ordinances, with the 11th one that I proposed yesterday, around things like affordable housing, homelessness, public safety, tax incentives, and, as foreseen, animal welfare. Sponsored, co-sponsored 10 of them, because I'm able to pull my colleagues together and actually change policy. My opponent, I said at the county forum, had passed 0 ordinances. That was incorrect. I looked at the record. I will correct. He did pass 1 ordinance in his 8 years on the council. So I have done 10 in my 5 and a half, and my opponent has passed 1. And I think that is a clear indication of my ability to pull a coalition together, get things done, and put policy in place.
Ready, thank you. Anders, same question, 90 seconds on your leadership approach.
Sure, at the end of the day, it's about petty scorekeeping. It's about getting things done on behalf of the community. It means setting clarity for what direction the city is actually going to move in, and it's doing so in a way that invites you into the conversation to help shape it. And that's different from pandering. It's different from just going out into the community and telling one group of people what they want to hear and then the same thing with the same other process. But it's about having honest conversations and making sure that people are authors, not just passive spectators. And that's something that I've demonstrated through the budgeting process, participatory budgeting, what I'd like the city to do with the city manager process. And it's part of my key component of how I do so many things on the council. I mean, you can tap down what an ordinance or resolution is, but if you can just literally look on my website. I'm a person running for mayor who has an accomplishments page on my website, and there are things that you can actually see, like my work passing paid sick and safe leave that became the basis for state law the subsequent year, working on tenant protections, working on incentives for electric vehicles, involving the Puyallup tribe in major land use decisions like the sub-area plan and getting their flag in the council chambers, for example, right? These are things that I led on, and sometimes being a leader and leading on issues means that your name isn't on the thing, right? Sometimes it's not about your ego, it's about the accomplishment and substituting your ego for the actual thing being done and people being helped. That's the approach to leadership that I favor. In terms of working with my colleagues, it's about what actually advances business for the good of all and whether or not you agree. I intend to have those conversations with respect, decency, and above all, certainty for my colleagues and the community as a whole.
Ready. Thank you, Anders. And John, you do have 30 seconds for rebuttal if you'd like.
Nothing. Yes. No, I think Anders does make a fair point, right? It's more than just ordinances. But what I say when I bring that up, when we think about changing the code, which is 1/3 of the job, and being a sponsor. So when you're a sponsor of an ordinance resolution, you're bringing an idea forward, working with your colleagues, and doing it. That's leadership. Just happening to be on the council when something got passed is not leadership. I don't claim what my colleagues did. I'm talking about what I did. And I think right now we need a leader who's going to stand up and put their name on a piece of policy and take the slings and arrows that come with that, not hide behind the fact that nothing unpopular ever passed while I was on council.
Okay, thank you. Your time is up. All right, we've come to closing statements. For the closing statements, each candidate will have 2 minutes to share their final thoughts. You may choose to summarize your message to voters or use this opportunity to address or clarify a topic discussed earlier tonight. Or if we didn't hit on something that you wanted to share, you're welcome to use that 2 minutes as well. John, you went first for the intro, so Anders, we'll let you go first for the closing. 2 minutes.
All right, well, thank you again. This has been a really lively conversation. This has actually been one of my favorite things, so thank you for running it so well. I'm just really excited at the end of the day because Tacoma is at such a cool crossroads between either muddling along and just perpetuating what we've done and just doing okay, just managing, or really achieving something. I think we really get the crossroads there. And how we get there is leadership that's able so that the real conversation can begin, right? And that's everything from making sure that there's real meaningful co-creation with the community for policy reformation, and that we're hiring and retaining amazing staff members who can carry out that vision and inspire confidence in the community. And how I want you to feel, because that's everything from safety to business friendliness to customer service of running a city, is that what you're hearing and what you're feeling from elected leaders isn't just transactional but relational. That you're hearing from us rather than us hearing from you, and that when you're mayor, when you're members of the council, when your staff members like city managers, community liaison officers, have you approach you, that it's a commitment to that regular kind of boring relationship setting of just what do you need on a recurring, regular basis. That's my vow to you. That's how I run my business. That's how I'm going to help run the city along with my colleagues and the new city manager. At the end of the day, we're not going to agree on everything. That's kind of the beauty of, I get in trouble for saying the phrase messy democracy for some reason when I re-election, but it's true. I mean, this stuff is kind of a controlled chaos in a way, just like entrepreneurship, just like business, and that's okay. It's okay for things to not necessarily be predictable, but the thing that should be predictable is your reliance on our value set and what we stand for and what you can expect from the city moving forward. And that's something I think is really beautiful about Tacoma. What makes us unique is that we've seen some really big things through, whether it's our waterfront, some parts of our downtown like UWT, Union Station. When we're smart, when we're humble, and when we're participative, and when we actually dare to dream and have a big vision and follow it through, do some amazing. Keep doing it. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. And John, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I'm going to start by telling a story. So I was talking to a woman over here on the South End, kind of where I grew up, and we were talking about, what does she want to see from the city? And she said, hey, John, let me tell you something. The city asked me what they wanted on the Streets Initiative. The city asked me what they want participatory budgeting. The city asked me what they want on any policies. The city asks me questions all the time. What I need is the city to do something about it. I need some action. And so while I agree with my opponent that we need to be grounded in what the public cares about. I've been on the council the last 5 years listening to the public. They talk to me every day. I listen to every council meeting. I read all my emails. I look online. I see what they say. I meet, I have coffee. And what I hear is not more process. I don't hear more time to figure out where we are and build buy-in. I hear a city that wants us to do something, to fix things, to change where we're at. And they want a leader who's going to grab the reins and lead, not follow, not wait to see where the winds are blowing, but go. And I've done that in my time on the council. And there are people out there who don't like me. There are people out there that don't agree with me. But you know what they'll tell you? John does things. John does stuff. He'll listen to me. He'll respond to me. I don't agree with him, but that guy's a leader. He does stuff. And that's what we need. We need a leader that comes in and says, we're going to do some stuff. We're going to make Tacoma better today than it was yesterday, and the next day we're going to make it even better. And that doesn't mean more emails, more coffee chats, more conversations, more consultants, none of the C's. It means, well, it kept her a council and a mayor who's ready to go. And I'm that person, ready to go on day one, and I'm ready to work with you all as I lead the city forward. Thank you.
Ready, thank you. Hey, a round of applause for our candidates. Thank you both. In this environment, it takes a lot of courage to stand up, and we appreciate you pushing back on each other, but modeling how do you do it with civil discourse. So thank you again. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, so that's what we have for all of you tonight. What an incredible evening of civic dialogue. Thank you so much for being here. We wanted to provide clarity for you on how you're going to cast your vote on November 4th. I hope we've done that. Your role is critical. Please make sure your voice is heard.
Yeah.